able to develop with the authority and the Commission, and we continue to be committed to the work we're doing with the State Department for Gender to develop a formalized framework. For the audience's reference, the WES Initiative is IPA's contribution to advancing research and policy development in response to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on women's economic empowerment and youth skilling. So the discussions today will be centered around this work, and we are supporting through the initiative. We also would like to recognize the presence of some of our partners today, like the Tibet Authority, as well as some other potential partners like the State Department for Devolution and Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industries. So we look forward to interacting today during this forum, particularly during the question and answer session. So I think with that, we can dive into discussions, and we'd like to ask a few questions, beginning with the State Department for Gender. So welcome, Rhoda and Nellie. Thank you again for joining us today. We'd like to ask if you could highlight the State Department's mandate with a focus on the webinar's theme. So how data can be used to fulfill this mandate? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ginger, the organizers, and all the panelists. We are happy that you have us here as part of this panel. The State Department of Gender was established in November 2015 in the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs then. We used to refer to the department as the State Department for Gender Affairs. Currently, we are stated as State Department for Gender and under the Ministry of Public Service and Gender. Just a brief history that the department was created from the former Ministry of Devolution Planning to promote gender mainstreaming in national development processes and champion the socioeconomic empowerment of women. And previously, the gender issues were handled within the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Development. The department draws its mandate from the Constitution of Kenya, Articles 10, 27, 60, 61, 81, and 100, just to mention a few. And most of our operations are given mandate by the Executive Order number 1 of 2018. So just to summarize the department's functions, as per the Executive Order, we have gender policy management, special programs for women's empowerment, gender mainstreaming in ministries, departments, and agencies, domestication of international treaties, conventions on gender, policy programs on gender violence. We also oversight semi-autonomous government agencies like the Women Enterprise Fund, WESO Fund, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and the Anti-Female Genital Mutilation Board. So in our day-to-day work, we are committed to equality and equity between women, men, girls, and boys. We provide guidance on gender mainstreaming to ensure institutions effectively serve women, men, boys, and girls equally. We also endeavor to build and sustain partnerships for gender equality and women's empowerment, and effective communication, knowledge generation, sharing about gender issues, among others. So for me not to go and narrate everything about our mandate, because it's a long thing, I just want to say briefly how data help to fulfill the State Department for Gender's mandate. That it's important to note that there is need for formulation of new policies to provide data for improvement of programs. And for such, research is needed for us to evaluate an evidence-based decision-making and programming. But we have noticed that there exists a gap in data availability and analytical rigor of existing data. There are so many organizations in Kenya that actually carry out data, but there is a disconnect between the data producers, data users, and we know there is need for data for our fulfillment of mandate. So to some extent, we also find like there's a disconnect. But just to answer the question, the availability of data helps in enhancing and encouraging collaborative research in Kenya and within the gender sector teams for a view of exchanging information, consolidating gains, and partnerships among stakeholders in the gender sector. Also, data will help to strengthen research capacities as well as provide visibility for research. And we also underscore the issue of the fact that availability of data facilitate the access of researchers, gender officers, policymakers, members of public to in Kenya to data and resources from other research organizations like IPA, just to quote. And we also know that data availability will provide access for purposes of download and report findings on gender equality, gender-based violence, women empowerment, as well as women peace security, especially where there are website links and virtual libraries that have been made accessible and available. Thank you. Over to you. I hope I've managed to answer part of the question for number one. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Rhoda. And I think the disconnect that you spoke about is one of the main reasons why we're here today, to connect researchers with policymakers and talk about how important it is to use data. So thank you very much. I'd now like to ask you, regarding compliance on matters gender mainstreaming, what are milestones and timelines that you propose to achieve compliance to these objectives?
Yeah, if I was to share, Ginger, if I was to share all the compliance and the milestones, I'll take all the 60 minutes for this webinar, but I'll just summarize that most of what we do is actually summarized in our strategic plan, which current one is 2018 to 2022. We implement, of course, in bits. And also part of our milestones is we have, the policies might change in future, but currently we have focal persons who are in ministries, departments, and agencies for the purpose of mainstreaming gender. We also align our programs to the current mandate of the state, like now the Big Four agenda. We also do reporting to the Commission on Status of Women, on the Maputo Protocol, on the AU, the East African, the Commonwealth, and even the Beijing Platform for Action. All the international instruments that we have ratified or signed, we give reports annually or as required on issues of compliance. We also have developed policies, and we encourage many of the MDS to develop policies, strategies, plans using a consultative approach. We've realized that gender equality and women management issues cannot be handled by State Department for Gender alone. So we, in collaboration with other stakeholders, we have developed so many policies that are and strategies that have been launched. Just to name a few: National Policy on Gender and Development, the Anti-FGM policy, the Women Empowerment Strategy, Gender Mainstreaming Policy in Tourism. We have the GBV app, the Commercial Dulma mobile app, just to name but a few. I know we have a write-up on the same. We also, for the sake of mainstreaming gender and as a milestone, the Intergovernmental Consultative Framework on Gender is in all 47 counties. And along this, we have the 4 thematic areas, which are gender-based violence, women in leadership, women, peace and security, women and socioeconomic empowerment and financial inclusion. So we realize that having 2 levels of government, it is important that this intergovernmental consultative framework works. And we have done that continuously to go and create capacity and work with the gender sector working groups to make sure that these 4 thematic areas, which to us, if well implemented, they cover the area of gender equality, women empowerment effectively. Many other milestones, like establishment of gender sector working groups, establishment of interagency program to prevent and respond to GBV, development of GBV service provider directories. There are so many milestones that we have done for the purpose of mainstreaming. We haven't achieved yet, we haven't reached yet, And also, if I was to go back to our strategic plan, which ends in 2022, so we haven't accomplished what we planned for yet, but we are on course and it is a continuous process. Thank you. Over to you, Ginger.
Thank you, Rhoda. And that's actually a great lead into my final question to the State Department. Could you just highlight what the State Department's long-term vision is for a gender information monitoring system?
Maybe I should have also, I don't know if you skipped question 3, which talks about collaboration with other government agencies, or I answer the vision first.
Yeah, I think just in an interest of time, you were able to actually speak about the collaborations quite well already, so we can skip to the question.
Just before I go to the long-term vision, just to mention one aspect of our collaboration for the purpose of strengthening research. We have participated in the development of the Gender Sector Statistics Plan, which was launched in 2020. And this plan has achieved some milestones, like for instance, enhancing gender statistics for continuous academia research work. And there's one particular project that has been successful, the one of making every woman count, where there was a student grant for the University of Nairobi students, all that were doing research on gender-related and women empowerment-related researches. And we are part of the team from the inception up to the time when the students completed and published their research work on gender. So to me, that is one way of collaboration that are very successful. There could be many others that have done, but I thought of quoting that one. What also should mention at this level that State Department for Gender does not carry out data collection and analysis as a primary function, but we work together with other research institutions to meet our mandates. Coming to a question of long-term vision for gender information management system, we believe, like in the strategic plan I mentioned earlier, 2018 to 2022, it's actually one of the main objectives or deliverables to develop a gender information management system. So for us, it is something that is to be achieved or implemented. It hasn't happened yet. And that's why part of our proposal here is that to identify and develop programs that will help us utilize the existing representative data sets and that are potentially useful for policy and decision making. And the capacity building that can be done is actually to develop, validate, retest, and disseminate a research tool that can help collection of these gender-related administrative data and statistics. Because when you're talking about a gender database at the State Department for Gender, you cannot have a database without data. So what you're saying is an information system, and knowing the fact that a disclaimer that I'm not an expert in information or IT, but I know a database that is supposed to bring out or help the users to be able to upload, export, retrieve reports, and even graphical representations for the sake of giving that picture of where are we, what's the status of gender and equality and women empowerment as in evidence-based for the sake of now policy and decision making after even our strategic plan. So to us, it is something that we look forward to completely achieving. And that could be like a thing or an area that we will want to collaborate or partner going forward. Thank you. Over to you, Ginger.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. I think it's been really great hearing about the State Department's prioritization of this work, as well as the roadmap that you have in place for future work. So thank you for that. We did get started a little bit late, so I'm going to jump into our next partners. So I'm going to invite to the floor Josephine from the National Gender and Equality Commission. Josephine, I was hoping you could highlight the Commission's mandate in relation to data use, and also highlight some of the advisories that you have emphasized across such institutions, maybe just a few. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Yes, like I had introduced myself, Josephine from the National Gender and Equality Commission. And the commission is a constitutional commission established by the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and Article 59 of the Constitution, and operationalized by an Act of Parliament, the National Gender and Equality Commission Act, number 15 of 2011. So the Act is what gives the mandate to the Commission, and all the functions, the 16 functions are listed in the Act. And the mandate of the Commission is to promote gender equality and freedom from discrimination for all persons in Kenya, but with a focus on special interest groups. And these special interest groups are women, persons with disability, children, youth, older members of society, minority and marginalized groups. So whenever we are talking about promotion of gender equality, we go beyond just sex to also include other issues, including race, health status of these women, men, ethnic and social origin of these men and women, their age, among many other issues that we look at. So when we're talking about the use of data and evidence to inform public policies, the Commission's overall experience in gender mainstreaming, and then looking at the government agencies, and we have seen the Commission use various ways to ensure gender mainstreaming in public agencies, focusing on composition of the workforce, accessibility, and the supportive facilities and infrastructure, and also looking at the policies and budgets. And some of the ways the Commission has used to mainstream gender in public agencies include facilitating public education, and this is mainly through trainings and also sensitizations, both to the MDAs and also to the community, so that they can claim their rights. So we provide education to the public who are the rights holders, so that they are able to claim these rights from the duty bearers. We also develop standards and also guidelines, which are essentially supposed to guide in implementation of gender responsive measures at the institutions. And some of these guidelines and also standards may include guidelines for gender responsive budgeting in Kenya. And also another one could be a county model policy and legislative framework for sexual and gender-based violence, among many other guidelines and even tools, model tools. So the Commission also monitors, facilitates, and advises on development of gender responsive policies, both at the two levels of the government, and the national level, and also at the counties. And we have seen the input provided addresses equality and inclusion issues, and also ensures the rights and freedoms of the most vulnerable population is guaranteed, promoted, and protected. And the Commission has so far issued in excess of 320 legal instruments. We also look at the issues of the other function that we're given in the Act, where the Commission receives and evaluates annual reports on progress made by public institutions on compliance with the constitutional and statutory requirements on implementation of principles of equality and freedom from discrimination, as guided in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And also by receiving these reports, we issue advisories from these reports based on how well the institutions are doing. And this is a function that is expressly given by the Act. So we also conduct and coordinate research on matters relating to equality and inclusion. And this is also one of the areas that inform the establishment of databases on issues relating to equality and freedom from discrimination. And one such database is the database on sexual and gender-based violence information system, which was developed in 2015. And this system brings together 5 key sectors in the field of sexual and gender-based violence, looking at the police, looking at the judiciary, looking at the ODPP, that is the Director for Public Prosecution, looking at the education sector, and also now bringing in the health sector. So one case is supposed to rotate through these 5 sectors at or even 4, depending on where that case was collected from. So we bring these stakeholders together so that they can report through this one system, and we are able to look at that information and inform programming and also policy development. So we also conduct investigations and also audits on status of special interest groups. And whenever we conduct investigation, it may be out of our own volition or based on a complaint reported by the public, or including reporting a violation by a public institution. So basically, that is also one of the areas that we use data to inform policy development. We also look at some of the advisories the Commission has emphasized on across public institutions. And the Commission has issued in excess of 300 advisories at both the national and the county governments. And they are mainly on adherence to the two-thirds gender principle, and also looking at the inclusivity of special interest groups, and also looking at the way infrastructure is gender responsive, facilities, such like. So the other advisory would be on lactation stations, where we have issued 44 advisories to all the principal secretaries in charge of state departments and also in the ministries, to ensure that all institutions, because all these institutions, and especially looking at the ministries, departments, and agencies, they fall under a ministry. And the ministry, the accounting officer is usually the principal secretary. So we issued advisories to all the principal secretaries to make sure that all these institutions adhere to the Health Act of 2017, where it requires establishment of lactation stations to support women who are nursing at the workplace so that they can be more productive, and also looking at the well-being of their children. So the other advisory includes an advisory we issued to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to stop discriminating on intersex persons in Kenya. And this made Kenya become the first country in Africa to collect data on intersex people in its national census in 2019. So basically, we have issued a number of advisories, but for the interest of time, then I think I can stop there on the issues of advisories. Thank you. Over to you, Jinda.
Thank you, Josephine. It's hard to summarize all that you've done in a few short minutes, so we appreciate that. And so we've heard from you about the collaboration that you have with other institutions and how that's really at the forefront of your work. Can the Commission comment on your use of evidence and data in its oversight roles for other institutions with gender mainstreaming mandates? And if you can, just in interest of time, keep it very brief. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the data that the Commission generates, and also data from other sources, have been very useful for the national, regional, and international reporting because we are the principal organ of the state to ensure compliance with all treaties and conventions that the state has ratified. And these they range from the Convention on the Rights of Children, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, among many other international, regional, and also looking at the national issues that we are supposed to comply to. So we use that data to ensure the correct information is given even when we are reporting to the UN bodies and also to the African Region Commission. So we also look at using data to manage this information system that I have talked about, and also to monitor the equality and inclusion in MDS, that is the ministries, departments, and agencies, and also looking at the counties as well, and looking at the use of data to coordinate multi-sectoral technical working groups, because we have established equality and inclusion technical working groups in 32 counties, and we envisage to establish in all the 47 counties in Kenya. We have also established a complaints management system, and also looking at the referral on violation of principles of gender equality and freedom from discrimination. So we use this data to inform how we are going to handle issues of complaints coming from the general public. We also use data to advise the government on mainstreaming gender, persons with disabilities, and also other special interest groups in the national development, because that is also another key mandate we are given to ensure that all these groups are included in the national development. And lastly is to coordinate public education, because we need to have information for us to be able to coordinate public education. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to the National Gender and Equality Commission as a whole for your responses. So we are now going to shift to our partners at the Micro and Small Enterprises Authority. We wanted to ask you also to highlight your mandate and really to focus on the use of data to inform policymaking.
Thank you, Ginger. As I introduced myself, my name is Richard Umelu. I'm a director in charge of strategy, planning, and coordination at the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority in Kenya. And on behalf of our Director General and the entire Micro and Small Enterprise family, we are glad to be part of this discussion today. The Micro and Small Enterprise Authority is a state corporation and established by an Act of Parliament, MSEA Act of 2012. Its mandate is to really develop MSEs, to promote and to regulate. So basically, the authority is mandated to coordinate all activities related to micro and small enterprises in promoting their development, promoting their promotion. The authority is also required to monitor all policies and also to provide guidance to other relevant bodies in as far as promoting the well-being of MSCs in Kenya. As an authority, we are also required to ensure inclusivity, particularly to integrate or to have the gender, the special group in all activities. Also, we are looking at, we are also required to develop tools for data collection, data analysis, which really guides or which is aimed at providing input to policy direction, to policy changes. So basically, as an authority, we are the major player in as far as promotion of the well-being of micro and small enterprises in Kenya. And basically, most of them are informal in nature. And informality presents its own challenges. Again, as an authority, we are required to mobilize resources through collaborations with agencies like IPA and other bodies to ensure that we have adequate resources to promote the sector, to promote their vertical integration in terms of their growth. And as we are doing so, paying a special attention to the special group, the vulnerable group, that is in as far as women, persons with disability, and gender aspects. So as an authority, we are working closely with a number of collaborators in terms of collaborations on specific areas and also on aspects of research. And as an authority, maybe just to highlight a few areas that where we are working with like APA, whereby we would like to really put in place a gender management system in place. And as part of it, what we're doing is that we are carrying out a gender mainstreaming situational survey together with IPA, whereby we've developed tools jointly in terms of collecting data to inform policy or direction or strategies. This we want to do it through an approach whereby we're looking at internal stakeholders within the institution, that is doing an institutional analysis to understand gaps within the institution, and also to inform strategies that you can put in place to ensure that we are gender responsive. So that is something that we are doing, working on currently. And apart from targeting the institutional, doing the institutional analysis, we are also planning to do for our clients who are MSCs. In this, we want to establish how responsible are we in terms of having or adhering or having compliance in terms of having the gender portion or the special group in our programs and activities. Really, we want to establish any policy, any gaps in our programs. We have a number of infrastructures spread across the country. The infrastructures in place are actually meant to provide decent workspaces for the MSCs. And as we're doing so, we also want to ensure that we are gender sensitive, we promote inclusivity of the special groups. And this is something that we've also enshrined in our strategic plan that we are implementing. We have a strategic plan from the year 2020 to 2024. And we've taken a deliberate effort to ensure that we promote participation of women, youth, and vulnerable groups through having opportunities for them in terms of market access, promoting access, market access to the group, deliberately having them during our normal programs and projects that we are running, really to ensure that they're inclusive and really we have them on board. So basically, we as much as possible, we are relying on data in terms of which we get from our normal day-to-day operations on the ground. In terms of now, and then once we get the data, we analyze and which now informs our policy direction. So we are embracing use of evidence-based decision making as an institution to ensure that we execute our mandate as required by stakeholders. So that is where we are now, and it is work in progress, and we are looking forward to doing much more in terms of really having a system in place that embraces data, that embraces evidence-based to decision making during that to inform our policy direction, not only for the authority, but also to inform other government agencies as far as MSEs are concerned and the special group.
Thank you so much, Richard. I'm really interested in hearing a bit more about the analyses and the data collection that is taking place. So I was hoping that you could touch a bit more on the gender mainstreaming situation analysis and how it ties to the gender management information system, as well as the overall strategic plan for 2020 to 2024.
Thank you, Ginger. I think where we are now is that we have developed tools for the purpose of really carrying out an analysis, really establishing gaps. And this is a survey that we want to carry out jointly with IPA. And as I earlier explained, first we want to start with the internal, within the institution, to see how responsive we are. The tools we have really look at the number in terms of gender, in terms of age, in terms of the distribution of staff internally, in terms of even at board level, to see how responsive are we to aspects gender, which we have the tools. We have not rolled out to we've not rolled out to the institution, but it is underway. So once we've done so and we get to know the gaps within the institution, we also put in place strategies to address those gaps where we find that we are not responsive enough to aspects gender. So as we do so, we also want to ensure that even in our programs and activities beyond the institution now, to our clients, in all the infrastructure that we have, or infrastructures that we have spread across the country, and the ones that we plan to do, to put up, we want to establish whether we are having a balanced utilization in terms of considering the gender that use our infrastructure, in terms of those we have, those who are trained, those who get trained in our normal programs and projects that we undertake. So based on that, based on the survey that we are about to conduct, that will now inform the gaps, or where we are not doing very well as far as gender aspects are concerned. Then based on that, we're able now to advise or have strategies to revise any deviations or any variations where we discover that they're not doing well as an institution, both internally at internal level, and also at external level. And this we have really made institutionalized it by having it on a strategic plan, which I've explained. One of our strategic objectives is to develop and promote gender participation, deliberately promote gender participation in all our activities. So basically, we have a number of activities that relate to gender. For instance, as you're looking for, as we really look for markets for ABC's products, we want to ensure that we have a proportion of goods produced by the special group that is also made available to the market. When you're having training opportunities like we have a project like KEOP and other programs and projects that we're running, we want to ensure that as we are conducting the trainings, we also have this special group being part of those who are trained, or those we are building their capacity to be competitive enough to compete with the other stakeholders in the market. So basically, from that, and again, we're also having an aspect of we're actually registering MSEs. And as I said, about 90%, there's a lot of informality in the sector, which now we are building also a database of MSEs as we also register them. So now, as we are doing that, we also develop tools continuously, which we do it internally and also with the help of partners or other we do it through collaboration. So whereby now we are building this database to inform where are we in terms of how many MSCs do we have in terms of what is the agenda. So we are doing we are also developing the tools, and this is informing. This is aimed at informing in terms of really policy changes within the institution to the board level and also to the government as we report on a quarterly basis, just to assess our performance.
Thank you very much, Richard. And through this situational analysis, if you could just highlight maybe one challenge that the authority is facing in incorporating evidence or regarding the situation analysis more generally.
Thank you, Ginger. We anticipate a number of challenges as we're about to conduct the exercise. One is that the dynamic nature of the sector, especially when you'll be doing for clients, clientele social analysis, their needs are quite dynamic, and therefore it means that the tools that we develop, probably the tools that we develop now may not be useful after some time. So it means that we have to be also flexible in terms of the tools that we develop, to be flexible enough to accommodate any changes that may come in midway as we are conducting the analysis. Two is that we also anticipate in terms of inadequate resources really to conduct the exercise, especially when it comes to doing clientele situation analysis. Our MSCs, we will ride on technology, yes. Some of them are not techno-savvy, meaning then we have to probably sometimes have face-to-face discussions and interact with them. And that requires that resources are allocated for the same, so that we're able to cover the substantial part of the Republic. So we anticipate that probably we also have a problem with resources. Three is that we anticipate that the MSCs or the clients are likely to be reluctant out of one, lack of understanding, and sometimes we from our interaction with them, the MSCs are used to quick benefits. If they don't directly see the benefit of interacting with you, they're likely not to give you attention when you're collecting data. So that may pose a challenge. And again, probably they might also give you responses that are not factual. So out of fear of probably disclosing too much about enterprises, out of ignorance. So we also anticipate that we are likely to face that. I know, again, another challenge that we anticipate is the issue of tools. We need to, currently we have inadequate tools to collect data, and that may affect us in terms of really collecting adequate data that may inform really analysis and decision making. So those are the key challenges that we anticipate to face. Internally, I know we are also likely to sometimes out of in terms of probably having responses or responses that are not a little bit reluctant to give responses, but through sensitization internally, I think we can handle that. But the key ones is that we require resources really to be able to carry out the situation analysis as an institution.
Thank you so much, Richard. And because you have just mentioned a few challenges, we don't want to sort of leave those hanging. I hope that we could have a very, very brief response, either from Rhoda or Josephine, just to comment on the challenges that Richard has posed.
Okay, thank you. And the challenges that MSEA are facing, they are more likely to be similar to the challenges that we face at the Commission, because drawing the budget from the same exchequer, I understand that poses a lot of challenges in the country. And also the issues of gender, there lacks a lot of awareness even in the community. So even when they're coming up with the issues of making their sector being gender responsive also poses a lot of challenges. So what we can do maybe is to liaise with we collaborate with other institutions so that we ride on each other's strength. Whenever they're having public education awareness, they can continue creating this awareness even on the ground without even having to have to reduce also duplication of resources and efforts. So we coordinate and we collaborate to providing this public awareness to the general public. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. We appreciate that guidance. So I think this has been really fruitful discussion so far, and we appreciate everyone's remarks. I'd like to now pass it, just in the interest of time, to John briefly, if we can maybe tackle one question for the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Ginger, and the panelists. I'm looking at the chat box and I can only see one question that is addressed to SDG. And before I ask the question, I want to recognize the presence of the Ministry of Education, that is the Directorate of University Education and Research. We're very, very much pleased to have you. So, sorry. So for MSEA, someone wants to know what are some of the learning areas that you envision, that is for MSEA, what are some of the learning areas that you envision with the gender mainstreaming situational analysis, and how will this impact policy and practice? So just in the interest of time, a very brief response. What are some of the learning areas that you envision with the gender mainstreaming situational analysis, and how will this impact policy and practice?
Thank you, John. So the question is about learning lessons and how to inform policy, particularly on institutional analysis. So basically, as I said, at institutional level, we anticipate a number of challenges, and also we anticipate learning lessons that we think we can share. One is that out of the analysis that we'll be conducting, once we establish in terms of the distribution of in terms of age of staff within the institution, in terms of the gender of staff within staff and board level, also in terms of distribution of resources, opportunities for trainings that probably we offer to staff and the board. We anticipate that that will inform resource allocation in terms of really allocating resources to areas that we think will require that to enhance our gender responsiveness, and also that will also aid us in really lobbying for more resources, even externally from the government, to be able to address any disparities that we'll get from at institutional level. And the same lessons we can be able to share with other institutions, how we can tilt where there's an imbalance within maybe resource allocation or distribution of staff and other opportunities. We're able to share the same information with other institutions, probably how we can adjust, how we can bring in the balance, because the imbalance also may cause other issues within at institutional level. So based on that, we're able to share the knowledge with staff internally within the institution, and also able to share strategies that probably management, the board, is likely to put in place in addressing any imbalances. And also that informs our planning process as we plan our activities and programs, that will guide us in ensuring that we become more responsive in addressing any imbalance that probably we discover out of it. So basically, those are some of the lessons we'll be able to share internally among the internal stakeholders, and probably we'll be able to package the same lessons and to be able to assist even other institutions probably that might be facing a similar problem in as far as aspects of gender, to assist them in terms of addressing any imbalance and also to make them more responsive and also to help them execute on their mandate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I think that's a bit very satisfactory. I can't see another question in the box, and because of interest of time, I think we'll move to the next session. So let me invite Margaret.
Yes, thank you, John and Ginger, for taking on the session so far. So I'll quickly take this to plenary, and I'll summarize some of the takeaways from the discussions that have happened today. So we have the State Department for Gender and the National Gender and Equality Commission highlighting what their mandates are. We know prior to this webinar, there has been a larger discussion around what both the State Department for Gender and the Commission do, and where the differences and similarities lie. So the State Department for Gender is mandated with promoting gender mainstreaming in national development processes and champions for the social economic empowerment of women. While the Commission is mandated to ensure that there is protection of special interest groups from all forms of discrimination. So the State Department for Gender quickly walked us through their sort of thought process around the milestones and timelines that they have set for compliance in terms of gender mainstreaming. And they highlighted that while they're not able to walk us through the entire plan, they refer to the strategic plan for 2018 to 2022 that covers all aspects of gender mainstreaming in terms of their milestones. But in a nutshell, they ensure that they align their programs with the current mandates of the state, and they especially highlighted the Big Four agenda. And they're also keen on compliance in accordance with all the ratified international protocols. Rhoda was also gracious enough to highlight that SDG has participated in the development of the Gender Sector Statistics Plan, which brings together a compilation of research within the gender equality sector. I think that's something that we all need to look at in order to inform ourselves. And she also reiterated that it's important that we support SDG as they are not themselves a research organization, but they've made it clear the significant role that data availability plays in their policy work. Now, moving back to the Commission, NGEC has taken on certain data development and management endeavors. For example, the development of the sexual gender-based violence system. And the goal with such systems is to allow for harmonious reporting and subsequent analysis. Josephine also highlighted that in the interest of some of the current issues plaguing the equality discussion, such as handling of discrimination around intersex people and establishment of lactation centers for women, the Commission continues to provide the requisite advisory to the right government agencies. And the Commission is also keen to ensure that data is used to monitor ministries, departments, and agencies before and upon the receipt of any advisory from the Commission. And that means that the Commission is also keen on gathering data through their complaints and feedback system to ensure that they are focused on the right issues as they present themselves. And then we also had our partners, the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority, bringing us to, the main fodder of our discussion today, which is the Gender Management Information System. And before we get to that, MSEA's mandate, as Richard highlighted, is that they formulate and monitor all policies that pertain to the micro and small enterprise sector. In addition, they also ensure that there's inclusion of all sector players, and in doing so, they provide and monitor the tools that ensure that that is effected. Then Richard then walked us through the thinking around the GMIS system, that is the Gender Management Information System, and stated that this is an endeavor that the authority is collaborating on with IPA. And at this point in this process, the authority, with IPA's technical support, is carrying out a gender mainstreaming situation analysis assess both the workplace policies and the clientele body to ensure that there is accuracy in terms of gender responsiveness. And in accordance with what Richard said, data in a nutshell is the anchor upon which the authority is able to create accurate policies. He also went on to state, and I think it's important for us all to note, that the authority is immensely keen in terms of considering all gender-defined needs of the clientele that it serves. And while he laid out a summative outline of the activities that they have taken in that regard, he particularly emphasized the desire to ensure that programs such as KEOP prepare their target demographics to compete optimally. With many processes, and Richard highlighted that this is a process that has its own anticipated challenges. And one is that with the sector being very dynamic, the tools that are being developed right now will require effort in terms of applying flexibility as the circumstances and focal interest changes. And then he also noted that there is a lack of techno-savviness from the clientele, and this is likely to pose a challenge as well in the process of data collection. And he also highlighted that there's some issues around sensitization to the process, especially where MSCs don't have a good understanding around why that particular process would be important to them. And in response to the authority's challenges, Josephine offered one very one very concrete recommendation that the authority consider creating a coordination mechanism to create synergy with other organizations that have similar endeavors, especially around capacity building. And then John has now taken us through the Q&A session. And the pertinent question here that was raised is, what are some of the learning areas around the GMSA and how do they inform policy and practice? And Richard has told us that in a nutshell, what they expect is that they will be able to understand how the staff body at MSEA is prepared, and also understand how gender response should be taken on, and ensure that this is reflected in terms of resource allocation, planning, and lobbying. Yeah. So that sums up our discussion today.
Thank you very much, Margaret. That was a really terrific summary. And I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of the panelists for being here today, as well as all of the attendees. I think we've had a very rich discussion of sharing and learning from each other, and that's why we're here today. So thank you very much for that. I'll try to be brief because I know that we are running late, but I just want to call out our panelists. So we're very grateful to hear from the State Department for Gender, the National Gender and Equality Commission, as well as the Micro and Small Enterprises Authority for all of the work that you're doing and continue to do. So thank you so much for that. And last but not least, we want to make sure that we thank the African Evidence Network, who is hosting the Africa Evidence Week. And we want to thank them for the opportunity for us to hold this forum here today. So we are here together today because we all value the evidence, the use of evidence to inform policy changes and policy making. And we've seen from our discussions today that we have dedicated players who are at the forefront of this effort to collect data, to analyze it, and then to use this evidence to shape important decision making. But I want to emphasize that we cannot stop here. The conversation in these efforts must go beyond this forum. And we want to commend everyone's work thus far, but we also want to make sure that we are advocating for other institutions to follow suit and to really create a culture around the importance of evidence-based decision-making and equip policymakers to do just that. And there will be challenges ahead. I think we know that, and we heard some from the authority already, and we appreciate you raising those challenges as well as the guidance from the other panelists, so thank you. There will be learnings from other institutions, and we need to be able to collaborate so that we can push forward on this objective and ensure that policymakers are utilizing new and existing evidence to inform their decisions. So I see this gathering today as a tremendous opportunity for all of us to share our objectives, our efforts, and also our challenges and lessons learned as we strive to use evidence to inform policymaking. Thank you all again for being here today. And I think with that, we can officially close the webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. God bless you.
Thank you and bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.